Thank you for staying with us. Thank you to those who came now. We are continuing the last day of the Beta Awards weekend with the third panel of jurors, the jury conference. My name is Alessandra Trofin, as I said a bit earlier, but for those of you who weren't here. I am going to be the host for this panel talk, but afterwards the conversation is going to be moderated, this time by Daniel Tellman, the president of the local branch of the Order of Architects. The biennial is organized in two big components, the awards, Beta Awards, but also at the galleries and the curatorial exhibition curated this year by Oana Stănescu. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, I do invite you to go and have a look. Today is a very important day because after this last set of conferences, we are going to find out who the winners of this year's edition of the biennial are. So the competition is organized in 7 different categories, and we have 3 different groups of jurors. For the first 5 categories, build space, interior space, public space, endeavors, and graduation project, the jury is consisting of 5 different architects: Cosmina Guagea, Corvin Cristian, Csaba Nadi, Iva Ciukic, and Victor Moldoveanu. The first presentation is going to be held by Cosmina, and I will introduce you to her. I will introduce her to you. Cosmina is an architect, a curator, editor, and by now a very close friend to us, to Beta, and to me personally. Her research and curatorial practice are focused on museum, exhibitions, art as an urban practice, place-making through cultural intervention, bottom-up city-making, and cultural strategies for urban development. She has been working since 1999 as designer and curator for exhibitions, for publication, for projects that deals with activation of public space, research programs, and conferences about architecture, design, and urban culture, both in Romania and abroad. She is now based in Barcelona. She is also an initiator and coordinator of several programs based on international networks of curators, architects, and artists. She is also the artistic director of Zeppelin magazine, a platform for communication and action for the city, and she has been curator for Timișoara 2023 program, The Places, Locuri, Territory, and having this occasion last year, we had this occasion on working on the nursery, the Pepiniera last year, and this is where our relationship to Cosmina grew even bigger. Thank you for being here, Cosmina. You have the word.
Thank you for the introduction, and hello. Thank you, Beta, for inviting me to be part of the jury this year. It was an honor, and it was an occasion to get good body of knowledge out of this assessment for projects, and I think that it gave me an insight on the production of industry and culture of architecture and urban things in this moment, in this part of the world. So thank you for this occasion. And I'm also grateful to Timișoara for being involved in the Timișoara 2023 curatorial program, which was for me a laboratory for experimentation on the city. And I think that it was a huge occasion to validate or invalidate some ideas and principles, and would never be possible in another context or in another moment. So I'm grateful to this city as well. So I'm working since alive in this Zeppelin platform for communication and action. And I think that it was with this project, which is the longest one. We are at the 173 issue this year. We've kind of developed some tools to look at architecture and to establish, to formulate some principles or some priorities or some criteria to consider architecture and urban development. Of course, I've applied those lenses on the competition of beta, and I'm always applying them on my own practice. And I very briefly go and enumerate those kind of principles, and then we'll go super briefly on my kind of portfolio to see the reverberance applying on my own practice. I think that the most important thing I'm searching when looking at architecture is the way it brings contemporary answer to the situation. It generated which involves permanent questioning of the situation and of the context and of the moment and of cultural and political context as well. This involves also unlearning, because not everything we've learned 10 or 20 years ago is still valid. We are living in a time of change and in a change of time on the same time. So we need to reformulate and re-articulate all the time our priorities and things that we consider to be relevant for the city and for life in the city. I think that this is particularly relevant when dealing with heritage, with architectural heritage and urban heritage. I would avoid by any means the museification of the city and of architecture, and I consider that building is dying when is stopping changing. So I would also, following different temporalities of architecture and embeddedness of the dismantling from the early stage of designing. So maybe it's a moment to learn how to disappear in a decent way. So how to delete what we've done and to do it in a design mode. Another aspect I think I've understood very late in life is that architecture is never neutral. It hurts or it heals. In this sense, I look at architecture in terms of connections and relationship it creates and how it interferes with lives of people and the rest of the flows in the city. So I'm trying to understand if it ruins the urbanity, or on the contrary, if it succeeds to enhance the identity of the place and of the city. And I always try to figure out the potential for placemaking and to create significant relations with the identity of the place, with the memory and with the history. I also believe that architecture is a very powerful and beautiful tool to create civic space, and that quality of a public space is a mirror, is a marker of the quality of democracy in this place, in this moment. That's why I pay a lot of attention to broad range of human rights to the city, rights to use the space, rights to memory, rights to time, to scenery, to culture, to dignity in public space, and so on and so forth. So, of course, I'm considering the intrinsic qualities of architecture and of materiality and volumetry and proportions and what we call it good architecture. And oh, okay. And I'm trying, or we are trying alongside, within our practice to create space and to create relations between the content and the buildings that are housing this content, and to create ways to extend their qualities and not to limit them. Some of our projects are, we've been invited here in Bataneum Astronomical Observatory by the National Library of Romania to talk about this very beautiful building, but we took the occasion to put the spotlight on a derelict, very risky condition, and to create kind of agency or leverage for the institution to trigger, to start recovering, to start reconditioning. In Cotroceni, it's a different situation. We've been invited to talk about the palace, and we've extended the theme, the topic, with the area, with the systematization of that area in Bucharest South, talking about the modernization of the city and the railway network and conditions that permit modernization. Let's say trigger modernization in this place, in this area. Museum of Romanian Literature invited us to create an exhibition based on the novel of Mircea Eliade, and we've tried to offer spatial kind of response, special answer to an imaginary city, and to overlap some imaginary spaces and streets on the real geography of the city. And it is highly interactive and meant to travel. Astra VR is an extension on extended reality for popular heritage within the Astra Museum in Sibiu, and they've created also a system of orientation and communication, which is extended on all the museum, open air museum, and they've tried to be as slim, invisible as possible to accommodate our electronic devices and our orientation and educational tools. Here is an exhibition dedicated to avant-garde photographer and filmmaker, Elie Lothar, and we've created here a kind of scenography within the Museum of Collections in Bucharest, trying to recreate a kind of very dynamic perspectives similar to the ones from the photos which are taken in Paris, in the streets of Paris, and there are a lot of racourcis and very different kind of perspectives in the photo. So we try to recreate and to dramatize in a way this content, to extend the content with an exhibition system. This is the most funny project we've been involved in. There is no heritage here, no object from Anton Pan. There is just a very modest house in a neighborhood in Bucharest, and we've played a lot. I mean, everything is interactive, and we've recreated music and atmospheres and stories using by those kind of low-tech mechanical installations, very popular in the fairs, popular fairs 2 centuries ago. With this project, we get the most prestigious award in our career. It is about DASA award for a museum, the award of the Academy of European Museum Academy, together with the Museum of Romanian Literature that we've also designed for the interior system. We focused a lot on the contemporary, on the urban phenomenon on the run. We've made some place-making programs in Carol Factory, nearby Carol Park in Bucharest, activating industrial heritage, abandoned industrial heritage. We've worked a lot with, we've approached very critically the model of the smart system, smart city, and we've talked instead about smart using of technology in smart communities. This is an exhibition simultaneously opened in 4 venues. This is a Museum of Contemporary Art in Bucharest, and all the installations were have been interconnected in real time with all the other three venues in Amsterdam, Bergen, and Stockholm. There are also some activations and some interventions in public space, in the socialist neighborhoods. We're trying to transform some nobody's place in places for the resident and for life. This is our project in Venice Biennial. It's a quiz game again, because we are very ludic and we want to have fun at least bit in our projects, and this is about urban phenomenon translated in the reality of Romania. So you put in the situation to answer to some abstract questions, and then you got translation of this of you choosing in the reality of Romania, which was very surprising for the public, for the audience in Venice. And you had to just to assume your decisions and your choices. An exhibition about Bucharest in a Metrum Gallery in Barcelona. A lot of our projects are dedicated to recent history and to the sites of memory. We work a lot with memorial of communism and resistance, victim of communism and resistance in Sighet. We made some virtual tours, curated tours for them as well. And we are also working now for a project dedicated to the roots of Romanian revolutions here, revolution against the communist regime here in Timișoara. And another under construction project is a museum of revolution in Timișoara. This is a whole museum we've created, a Romanian Museum of Collectivization of Agriculture. This was in Tămușeni, județul Neamț County, so it's a rural museum. And we took advantage of this existence of a real story. This house has been nationalized and transformed into the office of the cultural cooperative of production, and part of this was used to be the office of police, socialist police, militia. So we built on the real story, and we've used it as a pretext to talk about wider, broader phenomenon, national phenomenon, and to explain why we are in these situations now, maybe to give some reasoning or some explanations. It has also an educational program and the mediation and the cultural mediation and education, and it is also very interactive. There are some connections again between this order of Catalan architects in Barcelona with the Cărturești bookshop in Bucharest, and it's a communication in real-time dialogue between passerby in Barcelona and Bucharest. So we're trying to make bridges and connections and relations using by different kind of visual signs. This is a language of maritime communications. We've made a lot of fun here again. It is a project, a role play, a project. We've invited people to play the role of to be mayors for just for 10 minutes, to split a budget and to take some decisions for the community, and then we've processed the answers, and we've made other exhibitions and a documentary film by Vlad Petri that traveled a lot through festivals of documentary film and architecture film. Finally, I've been co-curator of a contemporary art exhibition here in the frame of the capital, Chronic Desire, Sete Chronica, and a curator and kind of instigator of a tree nursery, which is turned to be in 10 months from a very hated kind of appearance or installation in the middle of the city, to be a kind of a tool to negotiate dissensus and disagreement and collisions in public space. So it was a huge experience for me, and super grateful to the Chamber of, to the Order of Romanian Architects, Timiș County branch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cosmina. So beautiful to talk about togetherness, being together, working together, and for us it was also a pleasure to make the nursery with you. I will go next to the next juror, to Corvin Cristian, also an architect and designer, who began as a production designer and art director for feature films before founding his studio, who has his own name, Corvin Cristian Studio. an award-winning design and architecture practice specializing in hospitality projects, office spaces, and residential. The office activity spans a variety of fields: architecture, interior design, product design, identity and graphic design, and scenography, featuring a special personal blend of eclecticism and irony. The works of Corbin Christian have been widely published in more than 40 international design specialized magazines and albums, and also among the numerous international awards and nominations are the Architecture Master Prize, Frame Awards, Design, Restaurant and Bar Design Award, and many, many others. Thank you, Christian, for being with us and also for animating the party yesterday. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you are surviving the night. Thank you for being here.
I hope I will survive this presentation. Because we've seen so many beautiful presentations that really in the morning I thought that I have nothing interesting to present after all that. So, but then Anka told me, no, you have to present, just present something about scenography. So here we are. I chose randomly a few examples. This is how I started by doing set design for commercials. And this is one for Coca-Cola Christmas. And this is in Lapland. And these are Santa's helpers. But as a young architect, just finishing, this is 22 years ago, just finishing school, I had no inspiration except the Ronshamn Cathedral. So these are the houses in Lapland. And then the tower, the gate tower, is the bell tower from the Ronshamn chapel, except I did two big openings, like some funny eyes, and put those antennas to look like an owl. Because this, with set design, we have a lot of fun, or at least I had. These are the houses, and I still consider the shape is better suited for my project than for what he intended it to be. It's more fun as a Lapland house than a church, I think. And this is shooting there, and well, then I somehow evolved and drew almost real houses. This is a village in France for a movie in 1700, and as you can see back then, but also now, I still draw a lot by hand. But back then, everybody was drawing by hand because it was this tradition in the movie industry, and all the big designers who were coming here and they were nominated for Oscar and all this, and they were all drawing by hand because they thought it's a better way to transmit to the carpenters and to everyone else the atmosphere and the feeling. And they wouldn't let you draw by computer, even if you knew. So we had to draw this, and I mean, I also enjoyed to put the persons there, the actors, and to give a sense of. And it's also a great way to study architecture, classical, medieval architecture, which we don't do as much as we should in school. And if we think all the modern architecture was invented, created by architects who studied classical architecture. It was not done by architects who studied modern architecture. So I guess you have to study classical in order to produce contemporary. I wonder if you study contemporary, what will you produce? So I think it was a great way to cover up my missed classes from architecture school. Because we had to reproduce really very exactly the styles. You cannot afford in a movie that is shooting half in France and half in Romania to have band proportions that don't look specifically like France. And we did this for London, United States, all around the world, Bangkok, to look exactly like that, and not like 1 centimeter the eye would see that is an error. And then we were putting the greenery, because that's not, obviously, it's not natural greenery, but also the greenery had to be put as if I don't know, if the horses had eaten it and so on. So it's a lot of details, so many details in the big productions. I mean, not theatrical scenography is different, it's more about idea, but here is really architectural details. And, well, you can see the results. This is a street in Asia, which, I mean, it's in a stage. These are some corridors in Whitehall in London, which again, they have to be very exactly replicated. And then, after drawing these kind of things, it becomes very easy to draw what we do today. So it seems very simple. Or at least the proportions. I'm not speaking about the whole constructions. The proportion part seems very simple. I still think I am left with a passion for details and for fun stuff and for atmosphere, which I think I have to be thankful for the movie industry, 10 years that I spent there. And we did also these houses for birds. And this is for Dobruja region birds, and these are for Sibiu region birds. And they are in the colors and in the materials of those specific regions. You can see I brought from Dobruja those things from a fence. And this is a project that we just finalized last week, and it is opposite to the Telephone Palace, which is an Art Deco building. So it was our self-imposed theme to reproduce exactly cocktail bar of Art Deco style. And we don't have in Bucharest such things because the old ones disappeared and the new ones are new. So we created a history which we hope in a few years people will think it's been there like for 80 years. And this is the final result. And again, I think it's from the movie industry comes all this concern about details and shape, and I guess it also comes with some mistakes because I tend to be very, very concerned with shape, with form, and maybe less with the content, which I think in the debates with the jury was obvious that I was very biased towards the projects that I thought look beautiful and are beautifully executed, and maybe not so much with the whole story behind. And also the pictures, we were architecting them, the ones on the walls, because I think we cannot leave anything by chance for someone else to do them, and usually we put also the names and the logos for these establishments. These are specific Art Deco details and materials and color schemes and furniture and so on. So I guess it would have been there 80 years ago in almost the same shape. And this is a fun project that we did. We were invited for a festival in Logroño in Spain. And what happens with the festivals and with these temporary structures is ones that sometimes they're very intellectual and the citizens don't enjoy them so much. They have to understand, to think, to read, whatever. And also another thing is that they look perishable, which they are temporary. And I wanted to do something kind of against this thing, to be very easily enjoyable, to be very small scale, and potentially to be permanent. So we will propose some fountains, because the fountain is like a basic nucleus of plaza that brings people together. And we started a proposal for certain locations. And then this is the end result. And it was very, very enjoyed by the public because water is attracting people, and then the mirrors are also attracting people because, I mean, people like to look at other people in the urban environment, but more than that, they like to look at themselves, as you can see. And also the shape is kind of zoomorphic, so it was much appreciated by kids and dogs because they came to the water. And the citizens, in the end, they said that they wanted it to be permanent. They couldn't manage with the city hall, but now it's moving to Madrid, to another space, with the help of ICERE and of Concentrico Festival. So I hope my dream of having it permanent and not perishable will happen. Thank you.
You survived. Look at. Thank you for representing us in Concentrico. It's one of the festivals that we look up to, and we are also partners with them. And it's very funny what you said about the installation that you wanted. It is exactly what we faced when in 2022 we had the city as an exhibition venue, and we asked for a lot of installation in the public space. And this was, I mean, almost everybody wanted to make it permanent. Yeah, it's something about us. Just a second. We are moving now to our third guest, who comes from Hungary, Csaba Nagy, who studied architecture at the Technical University of Budapest and at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. He is a member of the Presidium of the Association of Hungarian Architects and the co-founder of the architecture studio Archicon, which earned a reputation as one of the Hungary's leading architectural practices for innovative reconfigurations of buildings, respecting existing structures, while also creating something new. In addition, the office received numerous Hungarian awards, and some of the buildings also received international recognition as Dixie Award. One of their projects, the Vizafago kindergarten, sorry if I said it, was shortlisted for EU Mies van der Rohe Award in 2022. Thank you for being here with us. You can have it.
So that's the magic number for me, 35. 35 because I founded our office 35 years ago. And we are certified in our office. And I think it's, now it's like a midlife crisis in our office because we have to do a lot, and so a lot that we need to increase the number of my colleagues, but I don't want to. And that's why I want to share you my presentation, what my problem is all the time. But now I'm here, I cannot solve problem at all. So that's our office. First, I categorized yesterday all of my projects because we have to categorize. I learned it. So the first category, I have only two categories, public buildings. The public buildings, the first one by the kindergartens. We made a lot of kindergartens in Budapest. That's the last one, the kindergarten and the nursery. That's another one which I have to present. There's a media prize in Hungary, and we are among the 5 finalists. We have to present it in 2 weeks. That's another one from the previous year. We were also selected in this, and we presented it. That's a nursery. That's the one, this Visafogo, we call it Visafogo, that's one of the most, that was awarded, or nominated from Hungary, but it was also among the shortlisted projects in Nils van der Rohe Award. 2 years ago, this was selected. Now I got the message from the Plan magazine award, also selected project. This is a huge project next to the Parliament building. This is another one next to the Parliament building and next to the previous building, and these buildings are altogether 100,000 square meter heritage building. And this is the Ministry of Agriculture. It looks from outside there, but it changed a little bit from inside. They covered the courtyard with wood. And that's our largest product now. That's they won a competition, and that's the campus in Budapest. And that's inside, partly a refurbishment of an old building and partly a new building. And the second category is hospitality. So that's always so, if I want to do something and it doesn't have, that was the hotels. 10 years ago I wanted to design hotels. But now we have so much hotels that's one I don't want to design, is hotels, especially not in old buildings. That's one of the most precious buildings in Budapest. It's in the city center. And there is another hotel at Andrássy Avenue. There's another hotel on Buda side, which is a Termálbad as well, on the Buda side, at the foot of the Gellért here. That's a new one, what I like. That's another new hotel. That's another new hotel. There was a skeleton at the Danube Bend, which was abandoned, and we transformed it to a hotel. So at the moment we have 7 hotel projects parallel. Some of them we are designing and some of them under construction. That was an iconic bath at the Margaret Island. We had to do a wellness area inside of the changing rooms area. There's another bath. There are a lot of thermal baths in Budapest. If someone comes there, it's the best in Budapest, I think, to go to. There's also an extension to this building. And that's on the golf resort in Hungary. It's one of the smallest projects. It's a wellness house there on the golf resort. So the competitions. The competitions are for that we have a vision what to do and how to. So I want to go design libraries or museums, but we don't have any. And what to do, you have to enter competitions. And, but where to enter? The first one was in Turku. The problem is that there are 400 other offices who want to win this competition. Then that was in Hungary. We got the third prize or the second prize there. That was in Estonia. The other one was in Cartago, all museums or libraries. And campuses. That was the second one I wanted to have. Campuses, that was a competition in Budapest. We won the second prize, another second prize, and then the first prize. That's the way how I'm thinking. If you want to do something, then you have to know the way how to get it. So that's the problem, something about the office. If you are not, if you are a leader of an office, then you have not only problem of the building, but problem of the people. So in an office there are a lot of generations, X, Y, and Z. The one generation is very important to have the work-life balance. For the other, freedom, flexibility, security, and stability. When X generation became an architect, there was minimum and star architecture. Then the most important was sustainability, And now the generation is focusing on global focus and critical thinking. And I draw by hand, the other are digital intelligence, and then you are technical. So everything is different in the generations which I have to work together. But that's not the only one problem. That the persons are also not the same. For example, that someone follows his emotions and the other one follows the logic way. And I would like to ask you to raise a hand if there is coming a decision and you are intuitive and you follow the emotions. That please raise the hand who is following his or her emotions. And who is following the logic? Both. And then sensitivity, knowledge, the same. That's also interesting change. Who likes the changes? Raise the hand. Yeah, and who likes the experience to be safe? And who likes chaos? And who likes order more? And the solution is, if someone likes chaos, he may be more an artist, and if someone likes the order, he's an engineer. But our problem is in the how to solve this problem. And in the office, we want to solve it with a teamwork. That we have to somehow work together. And as a type as me, who likes chaos, who doesn't like the previous, who doesn't like order. But my partner, he likes order and doesn't like chaos. We have to work somehow together. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great to see that everybody had these problems. Team dynamics is not something easy to tackle. Continuing on our Euro-regional Beta Awards, the next guest that I want to invite at the mic is Iva Čukić. I practiced Iva Čukić, who graduated from the Faculty of Architecture in Belgrade, where she earned her PhD in urban planning. The areas of her research include urban commons and urban transformation, which she pursues through intersecting academic and practice-based perspectives. She actively works with the community, supporting local initiatives in their efforts to address spatial issues and contribute to socio-political change in line with the principle of social justice. In 2010, she co-founded and now she leads the Collective Ministry of Space, which aims to contribute to the democratic and just development of cities. When it comes to her academic career, Čukić is currently engaged as a guest lecturer at many universities in Europe and abroad, such as TU in Berlin, ETH, MIT, Oxford, AA in London, Royal Institute of Arts in Stockholm, and many more. She is also a member at the research unit of the Laboratory for Planning, Culture and Spatial Policy Design within the Faculty of Architecture in Belgrade. Iva is a member in many boards, like the advisory board of the Faculty of Fine Arts in Vienna, the board of the Guerrilla Foundation in Germany, and the boards of the Drag Foundation and Jelena Šantić Foundation. I'm certain already. The Royal Institute of British Architects, or RIBA, as you know it, included her in the book 100 Women Architects in Practice, which represents a selection of female architects from around the world, distinguished by their professional contribution to the general good of society and the improvement of the environment. Thank you so much for being with us, Iva.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me, for having me here, getting to know more about the work in the region, but also thank you for your presentations. They were really great. I will link to what Kuzmina and Corin were saying. I think that architecture is not neutral at all, it's highly political, and I also think that we need a lot of fun. I actually practice a lot of fun while doing things that I'm doing. Also, I did graduate architecture, but then I figured out in the architectural practice that urban planning is much more fun. The interest and the power relations are based there. So how to break them, how to create alternatives, how to create responses is something that is kind of very in the field of my interest. I established Collective Ministry of Space in 2010 with 4 more guys. I was the only architect. They were coming from the Faculty of Political Science, Civic Engineering, and Graphic Design. And I just want to give a bit of theoretical framework of how the Ministry of Space is kind of operating, and that's in the field of spatial justice. And then another thing that for me is kind of mind-blowing is the phenomenon of commons, like the third way between the public and private and state and market. Like, what can we do which is different to the system that we know? And this is the quote from Stavros Stavridis, the professor at the Faculty of Architecture in Greece. The emancipatory potentiality of urban commons is both a concrete product of collectively developed rules of sharing and of crucial means through which these rules take shape and shape those who shape them. And I will go through different examples so you could get kind of an impression what is meant by this concrete quote. First example is a street gallery, Ulična Gallery, in the city center of Belgrade, literally next to the National Assembly and the city assembly, and it was a neglected passage. Here you can see. Here was the old cinema, the exit from there, and then you had these windows that were actually announcing what are the movies that you will see in the next weeks. And then this street, which ends with the narrow passage over there in the residential building. And like the other things in Serbia, everything is like deregulated. So one day, one guy came and he started charging the parking space for the residents of the building, like 100 euros per month. And they were paying him without like questioning who the guy is and why they're paying, because basically the space belonged to them as well. So that wasn't the thing that we wanted to address. We wanted to address the fact that the public space is shrinking and it's getting privatized. And the only answer to how the public space can be designed is either to put a commercial, a parking, or turn it into a bar. So you need at least like 2 euros to use a public space. So we wanted to establish the gallery, a space for dialogue. So to use public space to address topics that we find very important to talk about in Serbian society. And the thing is that we negotiated 2 years with the local municipality. I did architectural design, I drafted the program. We had some kind of idea of how it can be financially sustainable. And of course, the authority didn't trust us. And that was the democratic period of Serbia. So we had to kind of put a lot of effort. I was already withdrawing from the process because I had enough. And then a colleague of mine who became a politician afterwards, because he obviously knows how to deal with this situation, he actually left at the meeting with the local authority. So what was the conversation? To give you a bit of context, in Serbia, we are always competing with Croats, and Croats with us. We exist thanks to each other. So our only goal as a Serbian nation is to be better than Croats, right? So we came to a meeting. I was like, okay, I cannot go with this conversation any longer. And then my friend told to the local authorities, and it was a lie. There was one space like this in Zagreb, and we don't have any. And the guy said, there is one in Zagreb. We will have 50. And then he signed the contract, and that's how we got the space for 3 years for temporary use with the opportunity to prolong the contract. And I was actually organizing and leading the program of this space for almost 10 years. It still operates. From December 2020, a local collective called Matriarchy took it over, but the concept is the same. So every 2 or 3 weeks on Fridays at 8, we have openings, no matter what is the weather. You see the snow weather, we bring hot rakia, everything is fine. And we also, besides the exhibitions, which have to be either socially or politically engaged, or supporting some of the artists who are operating in the DIY collectives. So that was the idea behind it. We do a different kind of like side programs, concerts, workshops, movie projections, whatever. So it's we use art to create a space of kind of social space. Another thing that we were developing at the same time was the Expedition in Exfilm. This is the old building close to the city center, 1,500 square meters, which belonged to the Yugoslav production company, movie production company, and was privatized and empty for many years. But we didn't know that it was privately owned when we occupied the building. So we spotted it in March 2011. 5 of us, the Ministry of Space, as I mentioned, we were sitting together in the park, drinking a beer, discussing, oh my God, there is so much property that is empty, what are we going to do with it? Oh, there are so many interesting spots in Amsterdam, Barcelona, and so on, let's spot the building. So we invited people that we know. I have to say that I was highly disappointed by my colleagues, architects, who came, okay, the date was wrong, it was Sunday morning, everyone was wasted from like the night before, it was cold, I understand the circumstances, but like the lack of imagination that happened at that moment for me was devastating. So we were wandering around, and my colleagues were like, oh, we need like 1 million euros to kind of reconstruct this, because we didn't have water, electricity, no windows, nothing. And you know, back then, and like the capital we had was the pocket money from our parents. So let's use, I mean, I was kind of, okay, being a Tom Sawyer, let's use our like creativity, hands, and other things, resources we had, and do something. So we started with cleaning actions. First weekend, just 5 of us came, the Ministry of Space later collected, but then every second weekend we had these kind of cleaning, cooking together activities, and then the weekends in between we had let's say like exhibitions, concerts, and similar events. And what happened is that people lost when is the fun weekend and when is the weekend when you have to put a bit more effort, and then we gained the critical mass. People started using it during the summer, they fell in love with the building and this collectivity that happened through these actions. And after 6 months, we managed to kind of have a social cultural center, which had like 15 ateliers, studios, gallery, place, also the free school for students who want to apply for fine arts or architectural faculty, a kindergarten for Roma kids from the neighborhood nearby, and kids who couldn't be on the list for public kindergartens. And then through these projects, we also did a 3-year campaign on cinemas. As I mentioned, with Ulična Galerija, a local tycoon bought the Belgrade Film Company, and he closed 14 cinemas in Belgrade out of nowhere. So we stayed without the cinemas because we didn't have like shopping malls back then with the how it's called now, this cinema room in shopping malls has this particular name. It doesn't matter. So what we actually wanted to address, it's not only the fact that we stayed without the cinemas, but in a socialist period, we had a model of socially owned property. So not like the other Eastern countries, every resource belonged to the society as a whole. So the cinemas as well belong to the workers of the cinema. And Cinema Zvezda, Zvezda means stars, was stated as a guarantee in this process of privatization that the workers will receive their shares back, which didn't happen. So with workers, with students from Faculty of Drama Arts and other people, we decided to occupy Cinema Zvezda in October 2014. And it became, I don't know how, like European-wide known example of the occupation of cultural venue. So this animation movie that you can see on the screen is actually the movie made by Michel Gondry, you know, the French director, who actually kind of gave us a movie about the thing that we had for crowdfunding campaign. And then we received a call from Alain Badiou that he wants to come and visit us, so he came. And then you wouldn't believe Alexis Tsipras, the president of Greece, came. So there was kind of very unusual situations happening. There was a Guardian writing about it, New York Times, and so on. And there is a great documentary movie called New Cinema Zvezda, which you can watch and also learn a lot about collective efforts and traumas that some of us took from this action. And all of this knowledge was finalized in Cultural Center magazine, Warehouse, which is actually quite a complex model, and I won't go through it, but I want to kind of show you what for some people sounds like utopia, but it actually can work. So this is the space that operates in the same street in different buildings. So number 4 was a warehouse of the Yugoslav production company. Number 6 we occupied in 2015, and in number 8 we entered 2016. These two serve as cultural social center. Number 8 is a maker space, which is fully, brutally equipped space. You can produce whatever you want. Christian, you would enjoy there. Like literally whatever you can imagine is there. So the space operates highly horizontally. So all its members are involved in decision making. We are part of the assembly. The assembly meets once in a month, and that's how we make decisions. We distributed 300 keys around the city without any control. There is no camera, there is no security, there is no person employed here. We have a monthly coordinator that is a rotating function presented by the member from the assembly. How the space is organized based on the open calendar. So we have an online calendar, and you have all the spaces on the right, like the central space, co-working, illegal cinema, parking space, even that is on the calendar, dancing room, and so on and so forth. And each of us has a direct access to the calendar. We add which room we want to use when. And there, as I said, it's more than 100 groups and individuals who are using the space. And in total, we produce around 5,000 programs which are free of charge to the entire community. And we make decisions based on the values and principles and program priorities. So there is no curatorial practice and discussion about is it beautiful or not beautiful and stuff like that. No, we go through these values, unacceptable behaviors, and if the calendar is overcrowded, the priority is always given to public programs. So, for example, if Beta comes to Belgrade and you want to use Magazine, the same room at the same time when I'm like a dinosaur of the place and involved in every single thing, you will get priority because it's public, you will bring more people, and for example, my suggestion would be to use it for a smaller meeting. So I cannot go through all of these things right now because each of these has at least 2 paragraphs explaining what it's meant by all of these things. So it's not like social change and then anyone can interpret it what it means. What was a milestone in our organization and in general in Belgrade was Belgrade Waterfront Development Project. So it's like generic architecture on the Sava River. Here is the new Belgrade, and this is city center of Belgrade. It happened in 2014 when the government changed. The nowadays president decided to change the identity of Belgrade, even though we never discussed the previous identity. I actually don't know if we had the identity before, but it was just like the very autocratic decision as part of his character. It's 100 acres of city center given for free to Abu Dhabi investor to build luxurious spaces, office spaces and residential spaces. So in this tower, square meter costs 11,000 euros. And the median salary is in Belgrade is 600. So it's basically a money laundering machine behind it. So what we did, and this is also a super long story, we started opposing the project, but not the architecture, because that's really not the conversation that I want to have, is it nice or not, blah, blah, but all the processes behind and what are the consequences of these kind of interventions for the society as a whole. And we managed actually to mobilize 20 to 25,000 people on the streets of Belgrade every 2 weeks, and you can see on these pictures to protest against the project. And when I said to have fun, we always use humor to mobilize people. We don't come with like difficult and very burdening terms like corruption, non-transparent businesses, and so on and so, because people cannot follow you anymore. So we introduced the duck, like the huge yellow duck, which became the symbol of resistance. And it's really funny when you come, for example, to the minister office, whatever, and then you have the employee who show you like a small duck, like we are on the same side. And suddenly something that every household has and looks very naive becomes a very powerful weapon against this machinery over there that is happening. Of course, we didn't manage to, I can also explain why duck if you are interested into that. So the thing is that, so each household has it, so it's easy element, you don't have to equip yourself but with new things. It also means that when everything goes under the water, it will remain on top of it. And the third thing is that in Serbian slang, it means male reproductive organ. So you can use it in different ways, right? We didn't manage to stop Belgrade waterfront. Unfortunately, it's spreading all over the city. So also on the side of New Belgrade here and down here up until now. So the entire city, in total 400 acres. But we did manage, and I'm also a super optimistic person, so I'll take always the best out of every situation, is that we managed to politicize the question of urban planning and to engage people in urban development. So we established a format which is called Crisis Headquarters, where we do mobilizations and we go from community to community explaining what will happen in their neighborhood and why they have to engage. So this is, for example, in one neighborhood where the green area was to be developed into a new luxurious shopping mall. So we invited neighbors to hold the hands and just to understand the size of the future project. We also established, because up until now we worked with more than 100 initiatives on the territory of Belgrade. And these people are from like lower class to, for example, Lepa Brena. She also called us when she was in danger by the investor development. And I'm saying that because I know that some of you know who is Lepa Brena. It's a famous singer from Yugoslavia. So we established different tools in order to kind of deal with the huge amount of work that finally was kind of imposed by ourselves. We use social media to announce all the plans and projects that are happening on the territory of Belgrade. You see that on the left. On the right, this is the platform, GIS platform that we created, which is called the Gde Plan. Where is the plan? And when you go to the address, you will find all the plan and projects that are currently in the formal procedure, with all the documents and PDFs downloaded and made for you to open on your regular computer and not on NASA equipment. And also how to actually write the objections and how to get involved in the process. And then we go to the neighborhoods. And we go step by step explaining them about the process, what they see in the plan and how they can get engaged. And we created different tools as well to share before we go to the neighborhood. So the first one is guidelines to defend your space. The second one is a small guide through the planning of the cities. This small guide is actually a book full of drawings which you can see on the plans when you go to the public inside. So you don't understand the lines and what you see there, the drawings, but then you open the guide and you can somehow understand. And I mean, the entire process of being involved in urban planning is like, if you remember the beginning of Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy. So it's literally like that. There are no wild animals to eat you, but it's a basement, there is no one there, like special of the administration is kept at the same place where the planners are. So we try somehow to make this situation much more decent for people to participate in terms of like helping them how to understand what's going on. And then the platform where you have all the steps, how to read the plans, how to write the objections, how to prepare for public discussion with the local authorities. And what it contributes to, it contributed to increased understanding of participation of these are all informal groups. These are like regular neighbors. So it's not the activists or some kind of NGOs. It can be any of us. It also contributed to rejection of the plans and projects that are opposite to the common interest of local community. And for me, the most important, and I'm super happy that this is happening, is completely independent and proactive groups of citizens, which are also influential on the local level. And that's what I try to address with Craiova presentation, that even if you don't succeed in defending particular thing, you can really use this as an engine for different struggles and to get people engaged in the process of how cities develop. And finally, this is the tool or a mechanism that we are now experimenting with, citizens' assemblies. This is a very complex format of getting people together, around 50 or 60 people, including experts and moderators, to deliberate on specific questions about the space and to come up with a consensus. This assembly lasts between 6 and 12 hours of conversation, and you have to find, through the argumentative discussion, you have to find a common solution. What is actually interesting is that we tested it 3 times on smaller parts of Belgrade and 1 time with a representative sample of the entire citizens of Belgrade for the general plan, for the vision in the next 20 years. And people are really reasonable, and they know how to argue, and they even know how to enter the discussion even though they have opposite opinions. So you just have to make the opportunity and allow them to deliberate. That's the mistake that is made from the very beginning, is that we enter the conversation thinking that this one across us is like a stupid, boring person who just like wants everything opposite and ideological is opposite and so on. But we have to find a way to live together, and this is some format that we would like to introduce as a formal mechanism in the planning process. And finally, what is important, that after these assemblies that we experimented, especially in the context of massive democratic deficit in Serbia, we are invited now to work in Zagreb and in Montenegro and so on, is that with one group, which lives on the outskirts of Belgrade, this one, we managed to actually force city government to initiate the plan according to their needs and to finance that plan. And it will happen next year, starting from January. And this is us now. Thank you.
Eva, congratulations on your work. I think it's super inspiring, and I didn't know that we needed so much this energy and optimism. Thank you for that. It's refreshing. We go now to the last but not least, Victor Moldoveanu, who is an architect and creative professional interested in design and research, focusing on multidisciplinary innovative interpretations of social, political, and environmental resilient programs. He participated in multiple study ventures in Porto, like Porto Academy, in Brussels, in Rotterdam with the OMA and the Berlage, in Aarhus, where he also graduated.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. His extensive travels to South America, North Africa, and Far Asia have significantly influenced his professional work, which he approached with diligence, dedication, and enthusiasm. In 2016, he joined Elemental, Alejandro Aravena in Chile, to work on several projects in South America and the US. In 2018, Victor earned his degree from Aarhus, I remember well, where he was mentored by 2 teachers from there. You can mention them later. And he also his work was also awarded with different awards for excellence in digital and hybrid media. Now he is working at Foster and Partners. He joined in 2019. And he has been involved in innovative master plans and large-scale hospitality projects. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, and thank you for the few days of super work with the jury. I think we had a massive undertaking to sort of choose and discuss ideas and look at various and super broad projects, from scale to complexity to intellectual ambition, to everything, and the diversity of them, which we found difficult to judge as well. Dreaming out loud is something that I find myself doing quite a lot in my practice, even though I'm practicing architect in a day-to-day boring drawing squares and buildings. I think it's important to have a component of the impossible and the intangible in the way we think and in the way we produce discourse. And I want to show, I only have 2 projects, but they're a bit deeper into this perspective. And these 2 projects kind of relate to 2 categories of beta, which were the students and the endeavors. Because, I mean, for me, I related most to them, and I was the closest to these 2 categories. Because they were fun, they were loose, they were attractive, and I think they stirred up amazing discussions between us, the students and the endeavors. The trial of putting an idea on a paper and transmitting and all that was something attractive to me. So Protecting Paradise is the first one. It's basically about protecting people and nature, really. And it actually started in Nicaragua, in Central America. As Alexandra mentioned, I had the luck and opportunity to travel around the world in South America and Central America. And Nicaragua was one of these places that, it's amazing, it's just stunning. It's a land of volcanoes and forests and lakes. And it's amazing just to be part of that environment. I just want to briefly then introduce this idea of the Silk Route, and we're going to come back to Nicaragua. And this is a beautiful image from the British Museum. They just exhibited this. I was reading in a newspaper in The Guardian a few days ago, and it displays this amazing, amazing map, which is kind of difficult to read because the north is upside down, and so it's all about, it's a bit old. But it's about this epic journey that the Silk Route and the network that the Silk Route created, which is about trading goods and sharing knowledge and connecting people in ancient history. But looking at the contemporary map, which you can all read and it's a bit easier to understand, it's quite clear that there's a lot of influence on many countries on the contemporary Silk Route and the new road that China is promoting. And this study is about that. It's about this new extension of the Silk Route, which is global and is affecting and impacting many countries. And this is done, and you can see a lot of investments in West Africa, in Southeast Asia, which is being touched by the way these investments, there's deep ports, there's a lot of airports, highways, which, impact gravely the environment and nature and people. So back to Nicaragua, President Ortega in 2016, and this is a real project, was quite happy that China is at his doorstep. Nicaragua is one of the poorest countries in Central America, and investment was obviously the country would be thriving and everyone would be happier. He's holding this leaflet with Panama, which we all know was a success story, even after the Americans left. And then the issue with China is that they basically want to dig out a new canal to double Panama. And the whole issue is we need bigger ships. We need to transport bigger ships, more cargo, more transport routes that would exceed the capacity of Panama. So it's super heavy. So on the top we see the real project that was actually proposed in 2012, I think. And my sort of intention, which is on the bottom of the screen, which basically talks about protection, but it also talks about compromise. Because I think we should actually do it, but we should just do it in a smarter way and look at it carefully and just hold on for a second. We need it, okay? Let's just see what we propose and let's just see how we can make this connection work and have a critical approach to these people. The lake is, and what you see in the dark green bit on the right is the only protected area of Nicaragua. What I'm saying is let's just protect the whole country and yes, have this compromise of this line which is traversing the country, and instead just protect the entire area and the lake, which is the largest freshwater reservoir in Central America. And now the craziness begins, because I was thinking, okay, we need to dig this channel so we can just put people on it, and they can live and travel while this digging incremental process is happening throughout time. Because it could be a low-tech approach, it could be something that is happening during the time, and then people can live and work while this construction is being built, and then people can relocate on the course of the river, either on the north side or on the south side of the bank. And then this piece, which is at the left of the drawing, is something, it's a special piece that is moving through the jungle and just people live on it and work. Oops. And this is kind of representation, and I'm sort of agree that it's this sort of symbolic representation of how the channel can look and how people can relate to the channel and to the banks and the life of the water that brings life to the villages. And this idea of a moving piece was something very inspiring for me, because Christopher Priest has a very interesting book on inverted world. And it actually tells a story of, sorry, it tells a story about a moving village, a moving city, where the engineers would lay the tracks in front of the city. The people in the city would be moving on tracks, and then they would take the tracks back and put them in front, and so on and so forth. And there's also this idea that people wouldn't actually know what was happening in the city. The city would be moving, and the engineers are governing the city, and that's something that creates political tension in that place. I hope this actually works. Okay. And then this whole idea of movement is done into the representation of the project and into the movement itself of the canvas and the colors that are being brought from Central America. And this whole idea of verticality and movement is then has inspired the way the project is represented. And then if we look into cross-section, into the layering of how the project works, it's like the channel and the jungle in the background, and then the cross-section looks at how the city can work, and then the villagers are in their housing units. There's also education facilities, and this whole channel and the water is pushing this amazing, incredible device through nature and digging itself around the jungle. I just want to point out this detail on the bottom of the page. This is a book, which is a 200-page book, which I'm trying to wrap up in 5 minutes. So there's a lot of research and a lot of technical knowledge to it. But this just talks about before and after, and how we can build with nature to create a retaining wall, for example, and how we can use materiality to create a sustainable approach, and also to basically build with nature and use all the components that are there to create the embankment. And then talking about tourists, again, there's also a tourist component to this. China is a country that is financing this, obviously, and the irony of this is that tourists are also coming to experiment stuff which they can't do in China, obviously. So there's a tourist component, and there's residential for them as well, and the arrival on the water. But this whole representation, again, is being brought into the sustainability aspect of it, and the idea of working with nature, and for example, the marigold flowers, which are sort of engaging with the tourists. Now, on this representation, I think I wanted to talk a bit about the optimism and the massive vitality, which is introduced in the drawings. And this is kind of a summary of the project. It actually looks at a family portrait, and it's a sort of summary about the key aspects of the project and how it relates to the environment. And then, my final slide kind of looks at the final speculations, and we worked with CJ and my tutors to kind of create this whole way of thinking, and also, thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you to all of you. We can take now a 5 minutes break, or maybe a little bit more, but not too long. 5, maximum 7 minutes. And then we have to get back to continue the conversation. Daniel Telman, the president of the Romanian Order of Architects, the local branch, is going to moderate the conversation with you. Thank you again, and thank you all for being with us.
So, I would suggest that we start a relaxed discussion after these so diverse presentations of our members of the jury, and to kickstart this discussion and to introduce perhaps then later the whole focus of who wins what prize. I would link the theme of the Biennale to the first question, and I'm perhaps most curious, and I suppose also our colleagues are curious about the process you went through, the jury duty, and even the fact that you are so diverse in each your practice and in your approach, and given the fact that the projects themselves, even in the categories, were diverse, I'm confident that you reached a very wise decision in the whole process. But I would like perhaps a discussion on the theme of the Biennale, because we have the theme crafted by our curator, Oana Stănescu, Cover Me Softly, and I would invite you to expand perhaps on the point of cover and originality, perhaps adding in your statement points of interest you looked upon the projects you saw, and things you bring from your practice perhaps, or your experience, which, as I said earlier, is so diverse and flamboyant and eclectic in this format. Who would like to expand the discussion, and then we go further to develop answers. That's too complex a subject for me to touch. Generally speaking, the quality of the works was great, was amazing. We were thinking after each category, how can we give only one award, because there are so many who are so good, and we still feel bad that we didn't have more winners, because there were many who deserved to. So that's about the quality. So I kind of started. So
yeah, maybe I can reflect on originality. We had a short conversation before our presentation about it, but also during this process, which really took a lot of time, to be honest. That's what we also kind of shared last night. It became part of my life in the last few months, which was unexpected. The thing is that, I mean, it's very difficult to judge what is original and what's the results of some kind of learnings, or the context that we live, or the interest that we have. And I think that it was quite nice explained by Christian in his presentations, that when things go through your hands and when you research, like do the deep research, what is the elements that you adopt and become part of your own kind of authorship in specific instance. That was really visible in some projects that we saw. Even yesterday there was a discussion about one particular house and where the inspiration came from during the presentation. So it's something that we cannot avoid. It just depends what is our personal kind of final touch on the learnings and research we done before, and how it will contribute to the built environment and natural environment that we inhabit right now.
I think it's also the idea that you see something or read something, and you try to integrate it into whatever space you're doing, but at the same time you realize that maybe that small thing has been already done or studied or already exists in some sort of shape or form. And then I think the ability to, first of all, recognize and be aware of that particular piece that exists, that's one thing. You need to be aware and kind of be informed and know about it. But at the same time, I think what I liked in some of the projects is the capacity to have a twist to it, or to come with your small step or your small idea. Or maybe it's a big idea, I don't know. And the added value, basically, of what you create through what you propose, and the rounding off or having another step in that direction. And I think we saw there were a few projects which were doing that quite clearly, I think.
For me, it's a question of culture, of architecture, actually. And I think that I like very much to find references and different kind of reverberations or different kind of quotings or ironical references to other architectures. And again, questioning. So if there is a reason to question things and to put a spotlight on something specific, then it makes sense. So for me, the question is how much it makes sense besides a formal appearance and the volumetric and material shape, how much it makes sense, this reference, and if it is or not adapted to the current situation, to the actual situation. So it is about the meaning of this reference or cover and reasoning, and the cultural reasoning of it. So I think that is it. I like references and covers.
Perhaps some of you are aware and used, perhaps by choice, covers in your own work, which is ample. And I would perhaps not now or later come back to this. How did you use it, and how did you relate to the cover? Because we talked about how you let's say in some industries, as we saw in the exhibition, you pay tribute, and sometimes you are surprised to see your idea in another place without being conscient of the fact that it's underlying, perhaps emerging in different spots of the world, the same shape, the same concept, the same needs emerging from society or from practices. Can some of you relate to this way of putting the problem?
I've heard that in the textile design, you can use every idea from the others. That's why the only difference is the logo. Maybe it's the same, but the logo is different.
Should it be like this also in architecture?
I was thinking about it. I don't know. Maybe it would inspire us.
Would it drive?
Somehow we do it, but not in such a way as the textile designers. So fast fashion and all of these things, you have to be quick.
Fast architecture, I hope, is not necessarily a good option, but nevertheless,
There are also fast architecture, for example, the interior design. That's a fast architecture, I see. It lasts for 2, 3, 4 years, and then you have to do another thing.
And how would you weigh the interior design proposals submitted by our members through this lens of the fast architecture? and the cover. Now, I think it is done anyway. It's been for the modular houses and this, so there is a kind of architecture that is replicated and replicated. Now we are speaking of different buildings, which of course you cannot just put the brand of the architect as in the textile industry, but we're getting there apparently. And it won't even be an architect, it will be AI, and you can brand it as you wish. So much about originality, because this will be taken over soon from us, I think, on a more pessimistic way. But from here, I see this writing that artificial intelligence will build an artificial world. So when you ask me, I was just thinking of what I just saw there.
I think it's also, there's a danger when we talk about that in trends, for example, because a trend is a place where copies or similarities can appear artificially. And I think that's the danger when you actually lose the intellectual part behind what you do. You fall into this repetitive algorithmic. It can be done through AI. It can be done through basically any sort of technology which is not informed by let's say decent intellectual basis. So a trend is probably something where copies and similarities can appear.
I think for me it's relevant what do you decide to copy? What's your reference? Because it speaks a lot about you, what you decide to replicate, and what kind of criteria you use for this selection, why this work and not another one. And in terms of architecture generated by AI, I think that this is even more tricky because it is generated after a text. You need to create a text to formulate, to articulate the objective for the AI in words. So maybe we need to pay even more attention to the way we are speaking, the language we are using in order to formulate our aims. Because it could, AI and any other kind of, this kind of generating is giving us what is already done. It is a lot of, about the past, of what is already built, and it is about the past. So it's not necessarily something new. It's just recomposed and regenerated and replicated again and again. So I think that here is the role of emotion and sensibility and what you call the authenticity of the architect, just to have a vision and to go farther and to come with something that AI is not able to come.
I don't like to make replicas because it's not creative and I'm boring if I have to do something what someone has done. But in Budapest, the main boulevard is Andrássy Boulevard, which is very famous, but there are only replicas on the street, made 150 years ago. But all of the buildings are replicas. There are some replicas which are in Florence, I don't know how, well, no. Francesco is. Yeah, but you can see a lot of replicas in Budapest. And Budapest is proud of it.
Of course, if you replicate directly, it's one thing. If you add something to it, you look towards, let's say, a legacy. you evolve, you change by adding value, and this adding value, I think it's one of the main components of architecture to find ways to increase the quality of life, adapting it to the context and the condition in the place where you are building. And if we're speaking of legacy, I was very impressed by your Panama Canal 3.0, I would call it. It's practically a cover of the first Panama Canal, which has a legacy. Could you imagine a legacy for your proposal?
I think I've presented this many times, and it's the first time you actually. So this is an interesting conclusion you just said with the covering of Nicaragua being the cover of Panama. That's an interesting way to put it. I think, yeah, in a way, you know, we're in this absurd situation of replicating parts of infrastructure that we've built. And I can actually say, since that was a real project, you know, they didn't really seem like they did do their homework, so there's no lessons learned when they proposed the new one. So I felt that, yes, it's actually the same business as usual, let's just copy and do that. In terms of what I propose, it's probably a layer of critical thinking and maybe a bit of political discourse on how, you know, how would a city look if it's influenced by another part of the world, which in that case was China, you know. What if China is suddenly in Nicaragua on this line? How does that look? And you can go into all sorts of translations and interpretations and this clash basically of culture. It's basically a cultural clash, right? The moment you insert a part of something else in an environment which has already set rules and conditions. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I wanted to start this.
I think the legacy, you mentioned legacy, right? So I think the legacy is an important part of, well, the afterlife of what that result is.
If you ask the Chinese people, is it a replica?
No, I think it's different understanding.
Yeah.
In certain Far East is totally different. I mean, they understand completely different this acculturation or just kind of direct replica. There is this tower, television tower, for analog television in Tokyo, which is exactly the model and the building and construction of Tour Eiffel, but with 3 meters higher than the Tour Eiffel. But it is a replica 1-to-1, and they are, of course, some artists are having fun of this a lot, and they're critically processing and talking about this, but architects are very serious, and people in general are very serious, and they are proud of having a Tour Eiffel 3 meters higher than the real one, the first one in France, the France one, and I think that it's a different cultural paradigm and different paradigm thinking. So maybe we should take also this in consideration when we are critically approaching this kind of replicas and reproduction of things of architecture.
If you are talking about, and coming back to forests and nature, and also to, let's say, activism in architecture, I'm very curious of the way structured your position regarding either innovation and experimentation, which is very nice and good, but also towards the aspects of social and environment responsibility in the projects. How did they matter in the choices you made?
Well, that was the main challenge, actually. Exactly, to find, I mean, there's like, as already mentioned, the quality of life, of works and the creativity was really on the high level within those who were nominated. I mean, also with other works as well, which were selected, but when we went through all the presentations, it's kind of opened the new box of learning, which for us was important. I mean, I can speak on my behalf, the processes that were behind and how certain decisions were made and why the things were made like that. And this kind of also influenced the final opinion about the project. And I mean, it's something that it's a matter of balance between the innovation and social responsibility or climate adaptation. I particularly find the role of the architects highly responsible, socially responsible. And I mean, I could argue that for ages, and I understand that many of our colleagues are trying to be politically neutral, but I think that this neutrality doesn't exist. So every decision that we make in the day, like what are we going to eat, where we are going to sit, how we are going to dress, is a part of political decision. So it's not a party. The problem with it, it's we immediately, when we say political, we think about party politics. It's not party politics. It's bullshit, to be honest. It's made in a way to keep us away from important decisions to be made. It's also with the space and the imprint we leave in the cityscape. So the space is the construct of the society. So it reflects our values. It reflects how we live. What are our daily struggles. So it's really important to kind of use this opportunity to create an additional, like to change the values, to put, to create the alternatives, to build the environment that is kind of making this horror that we are living right now different. So for me, this component is obviously much more interesting, and there is an innovation even there, you know. You can address like the housing question, for example. There is a massive lack of housing, like affordable housing all around the world. We saw, I don't know if you saw the movie Push, for example, or any other similar topic. I mean, that's something that is very, very present in all our countries. So like thinking about what would be alternative models to the one that we know right now, for me, it's kind of both super innovative and also a socially responsible approach. And here I finish with this question.
No, I think also it's highly important, and going now from area which is built and which has impact in society towards an area which is perhaps utopical, and I mean now the graduation projects, which aren't built, which aren't doing it doesn't have consequence yet. I'm curious, and also colleagues of mine, which I spoken to, are curious. How important was the feasibility and the relation to a possible project for you? So how important this aspect was in regard to or opposed to the clearness of the idea? And I'm thinking now on ideal city in the Middle Ages versus today's urban planning. How did that work in your deliberation and values you set for yourself?
Yeah, I think It's actually, you said it's probably not that important because it's not built. I actually, when I look at a graduation project, I actually don't think about that much because I treat it with equal importance in terms of how you look at the proposal. I think there is, first of all, a link to how the what the project sets out to do. So what it's trying to solve and how is it placed in the context that it's and what it's doing. And it's also interesting, and we actually think we had a bit of tension sometimes between what you said, a super powerful and interesting and attractive idea, which is maybe utopian or not so feasible if you want, and another side of things which maybe is a bit more pragmatic and it's a bit more thought through, and there's a diagram about structure and all that. But I think that's the key, to actually judge it against what it wants to be somehow, and what that person what the person achieves in his intellectual ambition towards the project goal. There's obviously a layer of representation, and there's a little of clarity that needs to be conveyed. And I think we, even in the larger selection that we had groups of people that were very clear in the way they wrote. I was really impressed by the text part of the submission, which was very articulated in the way they described it, but also graphically engaging and clear. So yeah, if there's other opinions about this in the jury.
You want to add something to it?
I don't feel myself as a judge. That's the problem. If I see a project that goes into the mind and I have another thinking of it, and what blows my mind is okay, what not is boring.
And now the question I would like to come from you. Did you have any points which you wanted to highlight from the process and from the whole experience of judging the project and being exposed to the diversity of them? This would be perhaps a good moment to add to the discussion. And also I am looking towards the room. If somebody in the room has questions for the jury, perhaps you should think about it and raise the hand.
So you asked us about our points and conclusions and what we found out during the jury process. I thought a lot about the stories that we heard. So this was the main takeaway, that when we had throughout the meetings online, and we looked at the projects online, just showing the drawings and reading, we understand one thing, and then with some of the projects, we discovered so much more through the presentation, either online or physical presentation. So it was very important in the end, the story behind. And sometimes we architects, we express ourselves just with drawings and the image of the building. And if you're not there to explain to the people all the intentions, it's very difficult to judge architecture, design. I mean, some you can judge because they're easily usable. A good design chair, you sit comfortable on it. But then if the intention was the chair not to be comfortable, then you have to judge it. And there are many famous chairs, like Philippe Starck, who are uncomfortable. So, and we still consider them great. So how do you know? Or I design chairs to be uncomfortable because for venues, so you don't want people just to lose themselves there. And So it's good to know the story behind. And this happened with many of the projects, especially the ones in the public space, where if you're not there, how can you judge it? And we tried through the photograph, and then at some point you asked someone, but why did you put photos with people in it? So we understand that it's used. Yeah, well, we have to imagine. So I will remember that also I have to tell a better story maybe to the clients, to the users, so they really understand me, not just show them drawings.
I would just like to add a kind of recommendation for maybe a next Biennale, and I think it's part of the learning process, which is very useful to talk about the failures. I think it's much more useful than talk about successes and I did this way and this in that way and my investor was very rich and blah blah. So I mean, because you know everyone can do that, it's like an elevator pitch, but like to choose the specific moment when you would just like emotionally destroyed or super dumb or like zero money or in front of like facing bankruptcy. So these kind of things, because it's something that the majority of people also faces, and it's kind of really nice to relate to it and learn how you can overpass these things. And there were several moments during the presentation when people said like not they didn't fall apart here in front of us, but like what went out of the control. And for me that was kind of, oh wow, finally a human face, you know. It's, okay, this is something that actually happens in practice and we have to learn how to deal with that and not think that it's only our problem.
I think what we also need to say is that this was quite a long judging process, and that's because there was a huge amount of applications and submissions, which probably shows the interest of the practitioners and students to come and join us for discussing. So that resulted in a very long, I don't know, we met a few times and we were all in different parts of the world and traveling and working together. And then I think the summary of what we've seen in the past 2 days was a selection of the attractive topics that I think we wanted to put in front of people, society, Timișoara, and to discuss the relevant subjects that I think that we think need addressing and are relevant.
Yes, I like to be in an uncomfortable situation. It gives me things to think about, the process, and if they're making me processing even after the completion of this event even better. So I think that I'm still processing some things from the projects. I got some instruments and some tools, some inspiration to assess or to consider space, maybe with different lenses. And I'm super grateful, especially for one project. We are going to talk later on about it. And in terms of conversations with selected projects, I think that I'm highly empathetic. So I'd prefer to not be very contaminated with all those emotions and kind of a sense of vulnerability we can share, and I enjoy very much to share with my peers and colleagues, architects. But maybe I would need somehow. I feel that we know too much about some projects and some processes, and maybe at a certain point to be able to assess, to consider architecture, to focus on architecture and on profession, then maybe some more innocent eyes are better for me, at least. Thank you.
I only want to share the first experience of mine. That is so that there are a lot of cars coming on this road, on the other road, and standing there. And you try to stand there and look what car is coming. But you don't see the car because from that way it's very speedy, from the other way it's very speedy, but then you only see those whom you know. And that was my first impression, that we had 400 projects. And from the 400 I knew, I think, 20 or 30, and that's what I knew. But all others were the car that they passed by very fast.
Speeding by.
You are speeding by. And to choose from those who are speeding by is not easy.
Did you also find the selection process similar to what Csaba said?
Yes. I mean, as a jury member, you always have this culpability at the end. Then maybe you didn't select the only genius one, as we know from life that some geniuses couldn't even finish school. Their professors didn't find them good enough. So, as a jury, I still think that maybe we did not choose the best ones. Maybe, who knows, the genius idea was one of some that we pushed away, and we'll find out in 20 years. So I think this is also the duty of a jury, to be always unsure of its decisions. The moment you don't have dilemmas and you are very sure of what you, this is why we also debated a lot, and one which for one of us was an award, for another one was to be taken out completely. So, but I think this is what the jury has to do, to not be sure of its decisions, or at least I'm not.
I think we also need to say, probably people know, but we judge this online, and which, as in, we're looking at a website, and we also had a panel. So the object of the way to read the projects was, in a way, maybe a bit too much, because we had quite a lot of information hit us from many sides. Multiply that by 400, and you get get an overload. We had a meeting which I think had like 5 hours in one day. It's just incredible. And so I think that puts pressure on the applicants to be very clear and to sort of translate and sort of send the right message through the panel or through the text or through the diverse mediums that had to be presented. And like Corvin is saying, we were very responsible in reading everything and looking at everything, but there is this sort of air between us and the website, and or us and a panel, and there's the speeding cars, exactly, yeah. And Csaba was actually at some point thinking, oh, we should go and visit at least some of them because we need to be more informed about what decisions we're making. And I think that's still a valid point, and we should, do that.
So I was in the car and I tell you how it was.
You did it one for one, right? So somehow need to, I don't know, rent a few cars, I guess, and just wander around.
Were there any situations where presentations changed your opinion after?
Totally. Yes. And on both cases, actually, we had cases where they were very good initially, and at some point on the second or third local reading, I was like, okay. But there was also the opposite, when it was mild the first reading, or it's like, okay, final selection, but then yesterday or the days before, it's like, wow. This really was something that was super rich, and what was, for me, the best parts were not really about the object of the project, but what was happening around it, context, people, life. We didn't really talk so much about, in some cases, about the actual 1 to 5 detail of how that thing is welded together. We talk more about, the broader context of it, and I think that was the most successful part of it.
I'm asking that because other biennales, other contests such as ours in Romania have different ways of judging projects, and colleagues from other parts of the country appreciated this way of presenting the project, and I wanted to be sure, as a procedural approach, that we are on the right track towards the weighing of the project.
I have to copy another process. I think for me it was interesting that it's another way of judging. As usual, it was okay for me.
And
I judge every other week, so I.
But nevertheless, if one would talk about how, let's say, because the Biennale clearly addresses architects and non-architects, the people which are connected to the field of architecture. How do you find the use of this type of process, judging projects and showcasing them? How do you appreciate the value, the added value towards the public, and how do you see it perhaps in Hungary or in Great Britain done, so that we can make a cover of a better solution, if it would be?
Yeah, but I can't answer the question.
What was the first part? You had the first part of the question.
I suppose, since we are doing things differently in Timișoara, how are they differently done in Hungary, and how do we learn from that?
From your perspective,
I think people judge. I do a lot of personally. If I look at projects, I'm usually there physically. So we do it in person, and there's a limit. It's kind of a room like this, more or less, and there's a discussion. And so I think for me, the website was new, for example, but at the same time, it helped because it brought us together. And I don't think, it would have been possible in another way. And I think that's a bit of a price to pay when you bring people from all over the world, which I think is fantastic that you did anyway. So I think there's a lot of similarity in bringing people, putting together people in a room, maybe digital room, I don't know. Personally, my experience it is all about, it was mainly personal and mainly to be present in front of a panel.
Okay, so since you have to catch a plane, you said to me that you have a time issue.
Have to go soon.
I would ask if somebody in the room has a question for our guest. And if not, I would wrap it up. Thank you that you took place into the whole process, and I'm curious to see how and who made the final list. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.